It was remarkably boring, remarkably insignificant. From the very beginning, it was clear this was never serious. He was never going to invade Greenland. That threat was never real. It was political theater, noise designed to sound dramatic but destined to collapse under its own emptiness. That outcome was inevitable from the start. So when he casually shrugs and says, "Well, we should negotiate," it lands exactly where it belongs, nowhere. Because while politicians negotiate narratives, real people are forced to live with real consequences. And that brings us to Gavin Newsom. Since taking office, whatever label you want to attach to his position, California has endured nothing but cascading failure. Rampant crime, acute visible homelessness, crushing inflation, entire communities pushed to the edge. For those of us in the film industry, the collapse is impossible to ignore. This state was once the undisputed center of global filmmaking, the mecca of filmdom. Dreams were built here, careers were sustained here, entire industries thrived here. That California no longer exists. And Mel Gibson didn't merely criticize Gavin Newsom. He blew apart his image in broad daylight. The blast didn't stay contained. The shockwave tore straight through California's political backbone, exposing fractures that had been carefully concealed for years. This wasn't outrage manufactured for clicks or controversy. This was an ultimatum, raw, furious, and direct, aimed at a governor already skating on dangerously thin ice. So here's the question no one in power wants to confront. What happens when the mask finally slips? When the receipts surface? When the man running the state is exposed at the worst possible moment? Because what we're witnessing right now is not normal. The deviation from functional governance is extreme, and the irony is hard to miss. Media outlets that posture as moral arbiters, Pravda, Fox News, and others, suddenly clutched their pearls. They were offended. "Where's his mother?" they mocked. "Someone should wash his mouth out with soap." And the only appropriate response was this: "Where the hell have you been?" This isn't coarse language. This is criminal negligence being called out in plain terms. Do the mayor and the governor actually care about you? The answer is painfully obvious. No, absolutely not. And that responsibility lands squarely at the governor's feet. Before we go any further, smash that like button and subscribe, because what follows matters and you won't want to miss it. For years now, Mel Gibson has been tracking Gavin Newsom's record, not emotionally, not ideologically, but methodically. He has highlighted a consistent pattern: indecision dressed up as caution, political cowardice masquerading as compassion, and sheer incompetence sold as progress. That pattern has pushed one of the most powerful states in America to the brink of chaos. The evidence isn't hidden. It's documented. Video clips, interviews, public statements stacked one after another, all telling the same story. A governor obsessed with optics, more invested in appearances than in actually governing. California has existed under Newsom's leadership for what feels like an eternity, and the results are no longer debatable. Gavin Newsom and Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass already demonstrated their lack of competence and leadership during the devastating Los Angeles wildfires. Now, with lawlessness spreading and civil unrest simmering, it has never been more obvious that California is in a state of deep turmoil. And when you talk to everyday Angelinos, one question keeps coming up. Why are Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass still in office? How much longer are Californians expected to tolerate destructive decision-making disguised as leadership? Wildfires rage out of control. Homelessness has exploded. Taxes keep climbing while public services collapse. Public safety feels like an afterthought, something discussed but never delivered. Even Newsom's most loyal allies are beginning to voice concern. Some admit that while wild theories can spiral easily, certain realities are impossible to ignore. No water when it's needed most, perfect wind conditions, individuals caught starting fires who appear suspiciously prepared and well-equipped. Are they acting alone? Are they coordinated? No one claims certainty, but the questions keep multiplying. And as Mel Gibson sifts through the ashes of what was once his home, the weight of those unanswered questions becomes impossible to dismiss. Then came Bill Maher. A longtime supporter, Maher broke ranks and publicly questioned Newsom's judgment, particularly on sensitive policies involving gender identity in schools. He highlighted the absurdity of forcing teachers to act as informants, reporting private conversations between students and their parents. That isn't clarity. It's confusion institutionalized. At the same time, the tech industry packed up and left, Businesses followed. Entire sectors fled California because Newsom made it economically impossible to survive here. One filmmaker put it bluntly: it was cheaper to fly an entire crew to Bulgaria, feed them, house them, shoot for 3 days, and fly back, than to film one day down the street in Los Angeles. That isn't exaggeration. That's failure measured in dollars. Forcing educators into roles of surveillance instead of teaching isn't leadership. It's a moral misstep. When those entrusted to guide children are ordered to spy on them, governance gives way to performance. And political theater is exactly what Newsom excels at. While wildfires burned, nearly 80% of California's water was diverted to almond farms instead of firefighting or emergency reserves. Homes were reduced to ash. Communities were displaced, and the administration appeared far more focused on photo opportunities than real crisis management. Arnold Schwarzenegger, someone who actually knows what it takes to run California, didn't hold back. He condemned Newsom for refusing federal assistance, turning political rivalry into a public safety disaster. Because when cities erupt in violence and flames consume neighborhoods, leadership isn't about ego, optics, or partisan games. It's about action. Newsom's inaction wasn't just a policy failure. It was a failure of judgment, a failure of duty, a failure of morality. And when asked for a message to the governor and the mayor, Mel Gibson distilled it down to a single, brutal line: spend less on hair gel. Sometimes satire cuts deeper than any speech. Jon Voight soon added his voice, exposing what had already become painfully obvious. Newsom's ambition far exceeds his competence. His rumored 2028 presidential aspirations now resemble a dangerous fantasy. Under his leadership, California has become a cautionary tale, defined by rising crime, soaring taxes, homelessness, wildfires, water shortages, and bungled emergency responses. The message is unmistakable. When leaders prioritize ideology over action, everyone pays the price. And this isn't theoretical. California has already paid in fires, floods, protests, and skyrocketing crime. The line between spectacle and disaster has been crossed. Scaling this model to the national level wouldn't just be reckless. It would be catastrophic. Gibson's takedown isn't entertainment. It's a case study in failed leadership. What it exposes is far more dangerous than a bad policy choice. It reveals how indecision, political calculation, and unchecked personal ambition can collide. And when they do, the result is catastrophe on a massive scale. The ICE protests weren't a public relations inconvenience. They weren't a messaging problem. They were a direct threat to law enforcement, to businesses, to families trying to survive amid the chaos. Newsom's hesitation didn't prevent harm. It enabled it. Yes, he made concessions, just enough to look compassionate, just enough to signal restraint, but never enough to actually solve the problem. It was the political equivalent of opening the gate just wide enough for the damage to continue, while claiming credit for generosity. The appearance of magnanimity mattered more than results. And now, after all of that, he and Karen Bass want the public to trust them, to trust their vision, as they promise to reimagine the city for the people who live here. Build back better. Schwarzenegger didn't mince words. He called it exactly what it was: political gamesmanship paid for with human lives. Jon Voight warned that the consequences wouldn't stop at California's borders. Joe Rogan amplified what many already knew, that this was the unfiltered reality of a governor who had clearly lost control. And then there's the human cost. Burned streets, displaced families, threatened officers, destroyed businesses. None of this is theoretical. None of it is abstract. These are the real, measurable outcomes of poor judgment and delayed action. Newsom's late apologies and hollow assurances didn't undo the damage. The chaos had already carved itself into public memory. What makes Gibson's critique so powerful is that it isn't ideological. It isn't exaggerated. It's rooted in facts, in consequences, and in repeated, documented failures. Every mismanaged wildfire, every neglected water shortage, every protest allowed to spiral reinforces the same conclusion. This is a leader obsessed with presentation, not service. And Gibson's critique exposes a truth that keeps resurfacing. Leadership requires decisiveness. In moments of crisis, fires, water shortages, civil unrest, Americans don't need smooth speeches or polished press teams. They need leaders who make hard decisions, protect citizens, and choose substance over optics. So when Newsom announces he's launching a podcast, the timing speaks volumes. This is a state with the highest poverty rate in the country, some of the highest taxes, tent cities with their own zip codes, fire hydrants and reservoirs running dry, and somehow this is the moment for personal branding. Just last year, people openly speculated whether Gavin Newsom would become the Democratic nominee. Today, 7 out of 10 Californians say he shouldn't even consider running for president. That shift didn't happen by accident. Newsom has failed on nearly every front: environmental disasters, public safety, political accountability. His critics aren't exaggerating. They're documenting a pattern of avoidable failures that have left Californians frustrated, exposed, and angry. What stands out most about Gibson's critique is its scope. From rejecting federal assistance to prioritizing ideological gestures over practical solutions, Newsom has repeatedly demonstrated that leadership is not his strength. Each misstep compounds the next. Governance matters, and failing at it carries real-world consequences. And in the end, voices from across the spectrum, Mel Gibson, Jon Voight, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Joe Rogan, even Bill Maher, all arrive at the same conclusion. Gavin Newsom prioritizes ambition and image over the safety, welfare, and trust of the people he governs. From mismanaged wildfires to chaotic ICE protests, his record reads like a catalog of failures amplified by hesitation and self-interest. Look at what's happened to the city: rampant crime, exploding homelessness, crushing taxes, water mismanagement, fire departments stretched thin, and now the public is asked to trust the same leadership with billions more to reimagine the place they call home. This is our city. It belongs to the people, not to political experiments. The consequences are visible, measurable, undeniable. Anyone watching California's collapse cannot ignore the lesson. Leadership demands courage, decisiveness, and accountability. Newsom has repeatedly shown he lacks all three, and if his ambitions extend to the White House, the stakes no longer remain local. California offers a preview, not just of incompetence, but of a governing style that prioritizes politics over people, spectacle over substance, and ambition over duty. The critics speaking out aren't fringe voices. They are seasoned leaders and observers who have watched the decline firsthand. Their message is blunt: a Newsom-scale disaster on the national stage is unacceptable. That's why Gibson's takedown resonates. It isn't personal. It's a warning. A leader who gambles with public safety, mismanages crises, and elevates ambition above responsibility is not prepared for higher office. While Newsom and Mayor Karen Bass insisted Los Angeles was under control, the city burned. While blame was redirected toward political opponents, Newsom positioned himself as the future of his party. But Mel Gibson spoke out, and so did others. Different voices, same message. Leadership isn't about headlines, applause, or social media approval. It's about decisiveness, accountability, and protecting the people you serve. Newsom's failures illustrate what happens when those principles are abandoned. The warning signs have never been louder or clearer. California's struggles are etched into burned neighborhoods, displaced families, and shattered trust. When optics replace action, chaos follows, and Gibson's commentary captures that truth with brutal clarity. The stakes couldn't be higher if this style of leadership were ever scaled nationally. Back in 2019, Newsom promised to manage the forests. He didn't. He promised preparedness. It never came. Water was cut, systems failed, and while communities burned, the state drifted. The takeaway is unavoidable. Gavin Newsom's record is a cautionary tale of failed leadership, poor judgment, and misplaced priorities. Ambition without accountability is dangerous. Image without action is destructive. Hesitation in a crisis is deadly. Families rebuild with little help. Emergency systems remain strained. Streets still bear scars. And law enforcement wonders whether leadership will ever put their safety first. Every delay left damage behind. And that's why this isn't exaggeration. It's documentation. Leadership isn't a photo shoot. It isn't a campaign slogan. It's responsibility, especially when lives are on the line. California's story isn't just about one state. It's a warning to the nation. The question now is whether these failures can be explained away. It's whether leaders like this should ever be trusted with power again.